Alrighty, folks. Camera is not coming up today on my computer, so I'll just run this with the screen blank. Yeah, we'll also be going live on TikTok, so second here to boot up. Okay, here we go. Principle 5. Believe in yourself. You weren't an accident. You weren't mass produced. You aren't an assembly line product. You were deliberately planned, specifically gifted, and lovingly positioned on the earth by the master craftsman. That's Max Lucado, best-selling author. If you're going to be successful in creating the life of your dreams, you have to believe that you are capable of making it happen. You have to believe you have the right stuff, that you're able to pull it off. You have to believe in yourself. Whether you call it self esteem, self confidence, or self assurance, it is a deep seated belief that you have what it takes the abilities, inner resources, talents, and skills to create your desired results. Believing in yourself is an attitude. Believing in yourself is a choice. It is an attitude you develop over time. Although it helps if you have had a positive and supportive parents, the fact is that most of us had run of the mill parents who inadvertently passed on to us the same limiting beliefs and negative conditioning they grew up with. But remember, the past is the past. There is no useful payoff for blaming your parents for your current level of self confidence. Now, your responsibility to take charge of your own self concept and your beliefs. You must choose to believe that you can do anything you set your mind to, anything at all. Because, in fact, you can. It might help you to know that the latest brain research now indicates that with enough positive self talk and positive visualization, combined with the proper training, coaching, and practice, anyone can learn to do almost anything. Of the hundreds of super successful people I've interviewed for this and other books, almost every one of them told me I was not the most gifted or talented person in my field, but I chose to believe anything was possible. I studied, practiced, and worked harder than the others. That's how I got to where I am. If a 20-year-old Texan can take up the luge and become an Olympic athlete, a college dropout can become a billionaire, and a dyslexic student who failed 3 grades can become a best-selling author and television producer, then you too can accomplish anything if you will simply believe it's possible. If you assume in favor of yourself and act as if it is possible, then you will do the things that are necessary to bring about the result. If you believe it is impossible, not do what is necessary, and you will not produce the result. Either way, it becomes a self fulfilling prophecy. The choice of what you believe is up to you. Consider the case of Viktor Serebryakov, son of a Russian emigre who grew up in a London slum. Believing that he had no chance of ever finishing school or finding meaningful employment, Victor's teachers labeled him a dunce and told him he should drop out of school. Succumbing to the destiny that others had prescribed for him, Victor dropped out of school when he was 15 and became an itinerant worker, moving from one dead end job to another, often living on the streets with no aspirations other than merely surviving. When he was 32, Victor joined the British Army, which gave him an intelligence test that revealed he was mentally gifted with an IQ of 161. He was a genius. Astonished by the results, Victor nevertheless decided to believe them. Once he learned that he was a genius, he decided to act like a genius. While he was in the Army, he got assigned to the Education Corps to train recruits. When he left the Army, he got a job at a timber company and eventually became the manager of a group of woodworking factories. He also became a highly respected timber technologist and revolutionized the timber industry by inventing a machine for grading timber and by introducing the metric system to the trade. Later became the chairman of the National Timber Standard Commission and held several valuable sawmill-related patents. One day his wife Mary spotted an advertisement for a society that was looking for people of high intelligence. Victor took the entrance test for Mensa and easily surpassed the group's only requirement. Passed the only requirement for membership, an IQ of 140 or more. Again, he scored 161, putting him in the exceptionally gifted category. Several years later, its former dropout was elected chairman of Mensa International. What made the difference in Victor's life? It wasn't that he suddenly became smart. The truth is that he was smart all along. Intellectual potential was always there. Change was the way he chose to see himself. When he was 15, he chose to believe his teachers, saw him as stupid. 32, he chose to believe the Army's IQ test, said he was a genius, and he released the innate potential that had been there. Victor's story is an awesome demonstration of the power of choosing to believe in yourself and your capabilities. What potential is lying dormant in you that could be released if you just chose to believe in yourself and your abilities? I am looking for a lot of men who have an infinite capacity to not know what can't be done. Henry Ford, founder and CEO of the Ford Motor Company. Have to give up, I can't. The phrase I can't is the most powerful force of negation in the human psyche. Paul Scheele, co-founder, Learning Strategies Corporation. If you're going to be successful, you need to give up the phrase I can't, all of its cousins, such as I wish I were able to. The words I can't actually disempower you. They actually make you weaker when you say them. In my seminars, I use a technique called applied kinesiology to test people's muscle strength as they say different phrases. I have them put their left arm out to their side. I push down on it with my left hand to see what their normal strength is. Then I have them choose something that they think they can't do, such as I can't play the piano, and say it out loud. I then push down on their arm again. It is always weaker. Then I have them say, I can do it. I can play the piano, and their arm is stronger. Your brain is designed to solve any problem and reach any goal that you give it. The words you think and say actually affect your body. You see this in toddlers, for example. When you were a toddler, there was no stopping you. Thought you could climb up on anything. No barrier was too big for you to attempt to overcome. But little by little, sense of invincibility was conditioned out of you by the emotional and physical abuse that you received from your family, friends, and teachers, and by the decisions you made in response to that, until you no longer believe you can. You must take responsibility for removing I can't from your vocabulary. Once attended a Tony Robbins seminar in which we learned to walk on burning coals. We began, we were all afraid that we would not be able to do it, that we would burn the soles of our feet. As part of the seminar, Tony had us write down every other I can't that we had. Can't find the perfect job, I can't be a millionaire, can't find the perfect mate. We threw them onto the burning coals and watched them go up in flames. 2 hours later, 350 of us walked on the burning coals without anybody getting burned. That night, we all learned that just like the belief that we couldn't walk on burning coals without getting burned was a lie, every other limiting belief about our abilities also a lie. And George Danzig, a graduate student in mathematics at UC Berkeley, he arrived late for a graduate level statistics class and found two problems written on the blackboard that he assumed had been assigned for homework. So he wrote them down, not knowing that they had been written on the board as two examples of famous unsolvable statistics problems. He set out to solve them. Danzig would later recount that the problems seemed to be a little harder than usual, but a few days after he copied them down, he handed in the completed solutions for the problems, still believing they were part of an assignment that was overdue. Danzig said, if If I had known that the problems were not homework, in fact, two famous unsolved problems in statistics, I probably would not have thought positively, would become discouraged, and would never have solved them. Danzig's story is a wonderful example of how, when you pursue your goals without any limiting beliefs about what you can accomplish, you can create unexpected and extraordinary results. Don't waste years believing you can't. On the other hand, there's the story of Catherine Lanigan. All through her childhood and teens, she was considered a gifted writer. In college, she entered the School of Journalism. During the second semester of her freshman year, she was recommended for a creative writing seminar, usually reserved for seniors, taught by a visiting professor from Harvard. When she wrote her first short story, the professor called her into his office to discuss her story. He was the quintessential English professor. Horn-rimmed glasses, tweed coat, 6'6". Said, "Come in, Miss Lanigan. Sit down." Took her manuscript, threw it across his desk, and said, "Frankly, Miss Lanigan, your writing stinks." He was devastated. He said, "I have no idea how you got into my class. No concept of plot structure or characterization. There is no way you'll ever make a dime as a writer. You are a fortunate young woman, because I've caught you at a crossroads of your life. Parents are spending all their money on your education, and you need to change your major." Because it was too late in the semester for her to drop the course, he said, "I know you're coming to the class with a 4.0, and I know you have declared your bid to graduate summa cum laude, highest honors. I'll make a bargain with you. Get you through the class, and I'll give you a B. Promise never to write again." Not seeing another choice, he took the bargain. Later that night, she took her short story in a metal waste can to the top of her dorm, burned the manuscript, and declared to the winter night sky, I vow I will never believe in dreams. I will deal only with reality." Then changed her major to education. For 14 years, Catherine didn't write. One summer, when she was in San Antonio, she noticed a group of writers and journalists sitting around one of the tables by the pool of her hotel. Summoning up her courage, she walked over to them and said, "I want you to know that I really admire what you do as journalists, putting out news stories. My secret dream was to be a writer." One of the older guys turned around and said, "Is that right? If you wanted to be a writer, you would be a writer." Catherine replied, "I have it on good authority that I have no talent whatsoever." He asked who told her that. Told him the story of the professor. He gave her his card and told her to call him if she did any writing. Said she wasn't going to write, to which he replied, "Oh yes, you are." Thought about it, went home, wrote a book, and sent it to him. 3 months later, he called and said that he liked it. Sent it to his agent. Call him in half an hour. The agent did call and said, "Catherine, you're startlingly talented." Catherine signed a contract with the agency, and within 3 weeks, had 2 publishing companies bidding on the book. Since then, Catherine has published 33 books, including Romancing the Stone and Jewel of the Nile, both of which were made into blockbuster movies starring Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner. Think about this for a moment. Catherine lost the first 14 years of what was to become a lucrative and creative writing career because she believed the professor who told her she couldn't write. Don't ever let someone else tell you what you are not capable of. With training, determination, hard work, you can eventually do anything you set your mind to. Remember, your beliefs are a choice. Make the choice to believe in yourself no matter what anyone else says. It's never too late. It's never too late. Never too late to start over. Never too late to be happy. Jane Fonda, Academy Award winning actress and fitness guru. One of the most common excuses people use to avoid the risk of going for their dreams is, I'm too old. It's too late for me. I didn't start soon enough. Well, it's not true. Consider this. Julia Child, one of the most famous chefs in history, didn't even learn to cook until she was almost 40 and didn't launch The French Chef, the popular television show that would make her a household name, until she was 51. Susan Boyle was an unknown 48-year-old amateur when in the spring of 2009 she skyrocketed onto the international stage by belting out I Dreamed a Dream from Les Mis on Britain's Got Talent. Since then, she's recorded 5 albums, which have sold over 19 million copies, received 2 Grammy nominations, and amassed an estimated net worth of more than £22 million, $37 million US. Ray Kroc was 52. After spending 17 years of his adult life as a paper cup salesman and approximately another 17 peddling a machine that can make 5 milkshakes at once, he met the McDonald brothers, owned a few great hamburger restaurants in California, and convinced them to let him help them franchise their operation on a national scale. 7 years later, Ray convinced them to sell out their shares and went on to become a billionaire. Elizabeth Jolley had her first novel published at the age of 56. 1 year alone, she received 39 rejection letters. She finally had 15 novels and 4 short story collections published to great success. Doris Haddock was 89 in 1999. She began walking the 3,200 miles between Los Angeles and Washington, D.C., to raise awareness for the issue of campaign finance reform. Granny D, as she became known, walked 10 miles a day on her journey, relying on the kindness of strangers for her housing and meals over the 14 months that her walk took. In 2004, at the age of 94, she even made a bid for a seat in the U.S. Senate, making her one of the oldest candidates ever to run for a major public office. Anna Mary Robertson Moses, better known to the world as Grandma Moses, is one of the biggest names in American folk art. She didn't even pick up a brush until she was 76. She painted for another 25 years, long enough to allow her to see the canvases she had originally sold for $3. Sell for more than $10,000. Today, some of her paintings sell at auction for more than $100,000. 2007, 95-year-old Nola Oakes graduated from Fort Hays State University in Kansas with a degree in history, making her the oldest person to graduate with a college degree, breaking the record according to Guinness World Records, which had previously belonged to Moselle Richardson, who received a journalism degree from the University of Oklahoma at the age of 90 in 2004. Three years later, Nola went on to receive her master's degree, making her the oldest recipient of a master's degree at the age of 98. On her 100th birthday, Nola started writing her first book, The Remembers. And then, as if there was some kind of new competition, 2011, Leo Plass graduated at 99 years old with an associate's degree from Eastern Oregon University, setting a world record for the oldest man to get a college degree. It's clear that it's never too late to do anything. From nursing shoes to running shoes. When Helen Klein was 55 years old, her husband Norm came to her and asked her to train with him for a 10-mile run. She'd been smoking for 25 years and had never run a mile in her life, but she agreed to try it out. However, panting and exhausted after running 2 laps on a track they'd marked off in their backyard, she wasn't so sure. But she decided to continue, and each day she ran 1 lap farther. 10 weeks later, she finished last. She completed the 10-mile race. Spurred on by this success, Helen entered into other short races, but realized she was not blessed with amazing speed, so she decided to try longer, slower marathons. Since then, she's run more than 60 marathons and 140 ultramarathons. Here are a few highlights from Helen's remarkable achievements. At age 66, she ran 5 100-mile mountain trail events within 16 weeks. In 1991, she ran across the state of Colorado in 5 days and 10 hours, setting the world record for the 500K. She also holds a world age group record in the 100-mile run. In 1995, at age 72, Helen ran 145 miles across the Sahara and also completed the 370-mile Eco Challenge. She rode 36 miles on horseback, hiked 90 miles through broiling desert heat, negotiated 18 miles through freezing water-filled canyons, mountain biked 30 miles, rappelled down a 440-foot cliff, climbed 1,200 feet straight up, paddled 90 miles on a river raft, hiked another 20 miles, and finally, canoed 50 miles to the finish line. She also holds the world marathon record for the 80 to 85-year-old class, completing the 26.2-mile run in 4 hours and 31 minutes. Remember that Helen had never run before at the age of 55. Her story is proof that it really is never too late to start. You're never too young to start. On the flip side of the coin, many people stop themselves by telling themselves they are too young to start or that they don't have enough experience yet to pursue their dreams. That is also a false notion. Consider this. When I was speaking at the California Women's Conference, I met 12-year-old Ryan Ross, whom the media has dubbed Tiny Trump. When he was 3 years old, he started a chicken and egg business in his backyard. He had 60 chickens and sold a dozen eggs for $3. He was making $15 a day. He got tired of selling eggs. He started his next venture, a lawn mowing business. He charged his customers $20 an hour. But because he was too young to operate a lawnmower, he paid older kids to do the work for $15 an hour, giving him a $5 an hour profit. His next business was a power washing business for which he charged $200 an hour and paid someone $100 an hour to do the work. At the age of 5, Ryan was already investing his profits in buying real estate in his hometown of Toronto, Ontario, and in British Columbia. By the time he was 8, he owned 6 buildings and had a personal net worth of $1 million. Ryan also engages in philanthropy that feeds and clothes families in third world countries. He told me he was having lunch with the real Donald Trump the following week. Encumbered by a low self-image, Bob takes a job as a speed bump. I have to see it on TikTok because it's just not showing on my computer. I think I need to buy a camera. I'm sick of dealing with HP's camera. One day it works, the next day it's black screen. HP Invictus craftsmanship. Okay, back to the reading. When Alec Grevin was 9 years old, HarperCollins published his first book, How to Talk to Girls, which started out as a project for school. A year after it came out, he appeared on The Ellen DeGeneres Show, Late Night with Conan O'Brien, and The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. Within the first 3 months, the book made it onto the New York Times bestsellers list. A year later, he published 3 more books, How to Talk to Moms, How to Talk to Dads, How to Talk to Santa. A year after that, at roughly 11 years old, he published Rules for School. His books are now available in 17 countries. And then there's the story of Ryan Hreljak. When he was 6 years old, he was shocked to learn that children in Africa had to walk many miles every day just to fetch water. Ryan decided he needed to build a well for a village in Africa. By doing household chores and speaking at churches and schools on clean water issues, Ryan was able to raise enough money to get his first well built in northern Uganda by the time he was 8. Ryan's determination led to his founding the Ryan's Well Foundation, which has raised millions of dollars and has completed 878 water projects and 1,120 latrines in 16 countries, bringing access to clean water and sanitation to more than 823,000 people. Currently, 23-year-old Ryan has just completed his studies in international development and political science at University of King's College in Halifax on the east coast of Canada, and still remains active with the foundation as a speaker and a board member. When Jalen Bledsoe was just 13 years old, he started his own tech company, Bledsoe Technologies, specializing in web design and other IT services. In 2 years, he grew the company from just 2 employees to 150 contracted workers and expanded it into a global enterprise, now worth $3.5 million. There are very few adults who can say they grew their business into a multi-million-dollar business in just 2 years. By the age of 12, Brianna and Brittany Winter had completed their first novel, The Strand Prophecy, which was distributed nationally through Barnes & Noble. By the end of the 10th grade, these identical twins had completed 4 novels, a screenplay, a guide to writing, and a comic book. And get this, they're both dyslexic. Don't assume you need a college degree. Here's another statistic showing that belief in yourself is more important than knowledge, training, or schooling. 20% of America's millionaires never set foot in college, and 16 of the 492 Americans listed as billionaires in 2014 never got their college diplomas. 2 never even finished high school. So although education and a commitment to lifelong learning are essential to success, a formal degree isn't a requirement. This is true even in the high-tech world of the internet. Larry Ellison, CEO of Oracle, dropped out of the University of Illinois and at the time of this writing was worth $48 billion. Mark Zuckerberg dropped out of Harvard after founding Facebook and now has a net worth of $28 billion. Bill Gates dropped out of Harvard and later founded Microsoft. Today, he's considered by Forbes to be one of the richest men in the world with a net worth of more than $76 billion. Even former Vice President Dick Cheney dropped out of college. When you realize that a former vice president, several of the richest people in America, and many $20 million movie actors, as well as many of our greatest musicians and athletes, are all college dropouts, it's clear that you can start from anywhere and create a successful life for yourself. Some billionaires choose School of Hard Knocks, June 29, 2000, Forbes.com. Forbes list of college dropouts. What others think about you is none of your business. You have to believe in yourself when no one else does. That's what makes you a winner. Venus Williams, Olympic gold medalist and professional tennis champion. If having others believing in you and your dream was a requirement for success, most of us would never accomplish anything. You need to base your decisions about what you want to do on your goals and desires, not the goals, desires, opinions, and judgments of your parents, friends, spouse, children, and coworkers. Quit worrying about what other people think about you and follow your heart. I like Dr. Daniel Amen's 18-40-60 rule. When you're 18, you worry about what everybody's thinking of you. When you're 40, you don't give a darn what anybody thinks of you. And when you're 60, you realize nobody's been thinking about you at all. Surprise, surprise. Most of the time, nobody's thinking about you at all. They're too busy worrying about their own lives. And if they are thinking about you at all, they are wondering what you are thinking about them. Meanwhile, all that time you're wasting worrying about what other people think about your ideas, your goals, your clothes, your hair, and your home could all be better spent focusing on doing the things that will achieve your goals. Okay, that was Principle 5, and this one almost brought me to tears too. A couple times I got choked up. That's a sign of powerful writing right there. Principle 5, this chapter was Principle 5. Believe in yourself. I would argue it takes a little bit more than just self-belief to get to the level of like Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates, but it couldn't hurt. You also need some kind of connections, right? Or some sort of specific knowledge or know-how that other people simply do not have to be able to create market conditions that no one else is able to replicate. Self-belief alone is not sufficient, but I'd say it is a component. It's a component of success. Alrighty, folks, that should do it for today's reading. I am feeling wide awake. I see no reason why I should not or cannot stream. So I will also be back with the next episode of Horizon Zero Dawn. You can catch that playthrough on YouTube. Stormer Show, just the same title as this channel on TikTok. STORMERSHOW. Like, comment, share, subscribe, donations, Venmo, Stormer Show. Please help to spread the word. Because with more supporters, more of my so-called Storm champions series like this one can be much more commonplace. If this show becomes a success, it is because of viewers like you. So thank you indeed, and as well, for any and all support that this show should receive. I'll be back tomorrow with more success principles, so stay tuned. I will plan to keep continuously reading a chapter a day until I get through the book and only stop when I am not feeling up to it. Thank you all for watching. Thank you again for any support that the show should receive. Sleep tight, have a good night, and thank you for watching.